You're listening to the Meadows and Makers podcast with Making Stuff and Jacked Up. Making Stuff and Jacked Up.
So much.
Making Stuff and Jacked Up. Making Stuff and Jacked Up.
Let it go. You say get out of the way. Get
Trust me.
You're listening to Meadows and Makers podcast
with Jacked Up and Making Stuff. Peace.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another week of the Meadows and Makers podcast. My name is Greg, also known as Making Stuff. Sorry, I tried to use the proper English there, but Making Stuff on Steemit. And so this show is all about trying to live a more self-reliant lifestyle in today's modern times and try to share some inspiration for everybody out there, for anybody that is willing to go in that same direction or looking for some of this information. So today is going to be a pretty cool show, and it's going to have a lot of esoteric information. So it's maybe information that may be held by a few people that have been able to dig into some of this stuff, but it's also got a lot of good stuff in there about some, how to do your own self-reliance, and then mainly with mushrooms and how it relates to the health of bees. And so anybody listening in, if this is the first time you're listening in to my show, we get into a variety of topics, and so this one is going to be a very interesting one if it's the first time you've tuned into this show. So keep an open mind with everything we're going to talk about today. And if, anytime you guys come up with and chime in, I'm going to be there in the chat room to talk about questions or anything like that. And random internet guy, yes, bees like beekeeping, because the guest on the show today is another person I met from Anarchadelphia and is a beekeeper among many other things that he does. So we're going to talk about the cool stuff that he gets into, and then we go down the road of a path of a variety of topics. So if you guys will get and strap your seatbelts in, then we're going to go on a little bit of a ride today. I have a pre-recorded show that I'm going to be playing for you guys, but I'm going to be right here in the chat room to chat about it and be hanging out with you guys. So I'm going to go without further ado. Let me go ahead and play the play the pre-recorded show for you, and I'll be right here in the chat room hanging with you guys. So here we go. All right, so hey everybody, and welcome to another week of Meadows and Makers podcast. And on the show today, I have another guest for you guys, another person that I met from Anarchadelphia, and his name is Julg, and I'm gonna we met and we kind of hit it off and had a lot to talk about together. So I'm gonna let him introduce himself a little bit. But welcome to the show, Julg. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk with me today.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and maybe if you want to, I usually start off with my guests and have them maybe tell a little bit about their background and kind of get into who you are a little bit and what you're all about.
Well, my sign is a Gemini, so I'm into just about everything I can get my hands on. You know that.
Yep.
And my interest at this point is to help solidify a lot of the information that I have been collecting into something that is a little bit more understandable for people who haven't had as much time as I have to start understanding a lot of the different soft disclosures that are coming out and things of that nature, as well as ways of just improving your own situation, you know, as far as like sustainability and growing your own food goes and things of that nature, like mushroom growing and microbiology, entomycology, etymology. There really isn't anything that I am not interested in. So I don't know. That's kind of a loaded question for me.
Yeah, I know we were talking, and we just share a lot of the curiosity for reality and what's going on here, and seeking the truth about these things. And so yeah, you gave me an image here to show everybody. Maybe you want to maybe explain a little bit about this image here. It's looks like a newt.
Yes, I found this little guy. I've been growing mushrooms now for about 4 years, and
Cool.
I studied under Paul Stamets, and I did go out and take his actual course.
Oh wow!
And when I was rooting around in some of the old wood chip piles after I discard the blocks from where the mushrooms grow from, that's where I found this little guy in the bottom of that pile of mycelium and the wood chips, and I'm assuming that he was in there rummaging around in all the little bugs.
Oh, he was eating all the little microorganisms in there.
So these little critters hold such a fascination for me. They always have. And I find out that they're actually symbolic. They're symbolic for alchemy.
Oh, really?
Yes. Now, what's interesting about a lot of the species, I'm not sure about this specific one, but a lot of salamanders can regrow limbs when they're cut off, including their tail.
Yeah.
So they have nervous systems that are far more advanced than ours, if they can do things like that.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you like to be able to grow a finger when you screw up and cut the fucking thing off?
Absolutely,
I think we should look into that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very beautiful...
I'm not saying it's possible. I'm just throwing crazy ideas out there.
Yeah, it's a beautiful creature too.
People that are nutty enough to think they can change the world are usually the ones that do.
Yeah, I hear you on that. Yeah, so you got to study with this Paul Stamets guy now.
Well, not with. Let me clarify. I actually went there and took his course.
Okay.
I'm by no means like a prodigy of Paul Stamets.
Okay. Yeah, I gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, so he has like a little like a workshop or something that he hosts or something like that.
Well, he converted his entire home into a mushroom growing facility.
Oh, really?
In Washington, in the old growth forest. It's beautiful out there. If anybody's interested in growing mushrooms, he's really the guy to learn from, in my opinion, just because his approach is much more on the organic side, as far as being able to utilize different biological things to, like, for example, when you pasteurize straw rather than sterilize it, you leave some of the beneficial bacteria that actually guard the substrate so that another type of organism that wants to eat it as food wouldn't be able to take it over. So if you just do that, it's basically guarding the substrate and gives the mycelium enough time to develop enough mycelium, because the mycelium of the mushroom is actually its immune system.
Oh, really?
Yes. And it gets into protein coating enzymes and all that good stuff.
Oh, wow.
So
very, very, very interesting. And from what I kind of understand, the mycelium are in some type of communication with the plants and things like that in the soil, possibly.
Well, absolutely. I mean, they don't speak English.
Yeah.
But most things that don't speak English, I mean, some people, but it's more of a vibrational language, frequency. It's a language of emotion, I think, and it most certainly does. It plugs into everything. It's like an organic internet system. And I mean, the mycelium is so small. It's just it's so unbelievable when you see videos that they've done with utilizing small pieces of things and like putting a little bit of radiation on it to like tag it so they can actually watch it go through the mycelial networks. These networks are beyond intelligent. They know everything about what they have inside them. They know where it's going. They know what's going where. Okay, this is not just a by chance thing. We're talking about symbiotic relationships that are so in tune with one another.
Yeah.
That it seems so impossible to us that it could be, designed that perfect.
Right.
But there it is.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm looking at his website right now, and it looks like he's got all kinds of stuff for getting started on different kits on indoors or outdoors and cultivation tools and all that kind of stuff here.
Well, what's interesting is
cool.
A lot of people, when they first look into this information, they think that you need a massive amount of equipment to start growing mushrooms. And the truth about it is, if you know what you're doing and you're savvy enough, you really don't. There are certain things that you absolutely need, but as far as different methods, there are more methods, probably than there are mushrooms in the world.
Yeah.
There are so many different ways to do it. That's my point. So anybody who's, not getting into it because they don't think that they could have enough money, I mean, really, you just need pressure canners. It's really not that difficult. Basically, I've taken, his more of a professional commercial mushroom setup, and I've created a setup for myself that utilizes a lot more of the stuff that most of us have available, at some of the stores that are still around and things like that.
Okay.
So basically what I'm saying is I can make like a list of things that you'll need, you know what I mean? Basically the bare minimum for people who want to start getting into this stuff if they don't want to go spending a whole lot of money, because Paul Stamets had a whole lot of stories about this. He told us stories about people that went right out and borrowed millions of dollars. Millions.
Okay.
And they set up these giant mushroom growing places, and after about a year they'd call him telling him that they had horrible problems with, different contaminations and stuff like that. And funny enough, it's because they were thinking with their wallets.
Yeah.
They think just because buying all this great equipment, they're not going to have any problem at all with contamination. But if you don't use your fucking head, you're not going to get very far. And that's exactly where, this whole mushroom thing comes in. The people that are more paranoid about things or more careful about things are going to fare out better because you're imagining it in your head. You're literally imagining billions of particulates in the air.
Okay.
I mean, some of them are aspergillus and some are like penicillium molds and things like that. But basically, it acts more in the metaphysical realm, the imagination, because you can't see a lot of the stuff that you're dealing with.
Yeah. It's there, but you'd have to have super magnification to be able to check out what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah, you would need a Dr. Royal Raymond Rife microscope, which had over 5,000 parts, actual mechanical parts.
Yeah.
If you don't know, if you're not familiar with that microscope could actually see just as small as the electron microscope can today. The only difference between the two is the electron microscope can only take a still image.
Yeah.
But that microscope all the way back then in the early 1900s could actually watch it in real time.
Yeah, I watched a documentary about that, and familiar with Rife and what he created. He figured out how to use frequencies to try to heal from different types of illnesses and things like that. And I watched this documentary on it, and it was amazing that the microscope that he built, and it would be cool to try to replicate one of his microscopes and be able to see these live things at this very small scale. And I think in the documentary he was saying something like he zoomed inside of a cell, and then he zoomed in again inside at like 10,000 or like 60,000 times magnification or something like that. And he was saying, well, where does it end? Like he was like, I think this is infinite, Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
In a sick cosmic twisted way, but you kind of have to laugh at this stuff, or you'll focus too much on the suffering.
Yeah. So before the show, you give me these things to kind of look into. And, I was listening to the podcast with Joe Rogan and Paul Stamets, and he was talking about how when people come out of a mushroom experience, especially psilocybin mushrooms, they experience a sense of it's like a loss of fear. They develop courage, and then they also gain more empathy for their fellow man. And from past episodes of my podcast, people know my story about mushrooms and an intense trip I had, and it was like I can attest to that. So he was talking about how this could be a very beneficial thing for people with like PTSD and depression.
Could be. It will be.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a very powerful thing, and so you've been able to set up your own kind of mushroom cultivation, or you've done this at small scale, is what you're saying?
Well, I've done it at several levels. I started out with literally the space underneath my bed.
Okay.
So for any of you saying that, it can't be done because I don't have enough room, well, I just proved you wrong. So,
yep.
Sorry. Get off your butt and do something.
Yeah. So you can start off, you were saying, just by some canning jars and the right like spores and the right materials.
Again, we'd have to have a podcast just specifically on mushrooms. I don't know how much I want to focus on it on this one.
Okay.
But we can definitely do a video that's all about mushrooms, and I can really dive deep, and we can really dive deep. But there's a lot of other topics.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, we'll definitely get into that sometime. Definitely want to chat with you about some of that stuff.
But what I will reiterate to what you were saying about that, though, what I'll add to it is that I had a really bad accident about 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
A combination of alcohol withdrawal and severe blunt trauma to the head.
Yeah.
Basically, somebody really close to me almost beat me to death with their bare hands.
Wow.
And I woke up in the hospital. I couldn't walk, couldn't feed myself, couldn't do anything. I didn't even remember who I was. I lost about a third of my memory, the doctor said, and basically it caused grand mal seizures that put me into a coma for 5 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Now I had to learn how to walk again at 27. Now, when the hospital kicked my ass out when I still couldn't fucking walk or remember my name, they didn't do anything for me at all. I was in such excruciating pain. My nerve endings all over I can't even begin.
Wow.
I won't play the violin for you, though. But basically, the only thing that helped me was coming across this information on mushrooms. I read about these mushrooms being able to rebuild neurons in the brain.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, here I am.
Wow. So you had
living proof.
Yeah, that really helped you out. Yeah. So wow, you had amnesia, or you couldn't. Did you get that memory back over time, or it was
little bits of it? Yes.
Okay.
But it really only came back after I rebuilt a lot of my neurons in my brain. And for anybody who's ever fallen into drinking alcohol or doing drugs or whatever for a period of time to the point where you have like very few brain cells left,
yeah,
and then you kind of bounce back from it, you can feel it. You can tell when you're sharp and you're really on it, and when you're forgetting things every other second.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so yeah, one of the things that we both in Anarchadelphia, we were both sitting in the Clive de Carle's workshop, and I remember you bringing up something about niacin, and if you want to get into that, maybe we can shift into maybe what you've learned about that.
Well, I suppose you can just recommend that book, and all I'm going to say about it is that everything you know about medicine is so horribly wrong. It will cause you to lose your fucking shit. But that book right there is basically orthomolecular medicine, and we're all deficient in niacin, vitamin B3. Even Bill W. of AA tried to implement it into the AA program so that people could have a foundation of, less anxiety to start from. Well, the physicians at the top of that pyramid didn't think that was a good idea because it would fucking hurt their pockets financially. So they stomped the idea out, and Bill W. died, all of a sudden, right around the time he was trying to get this information of this book out to every fucking AA room in the country and the rest of the world. They killed him. Wow. I think they did anyway. It's a freaking pattern. Every time you have this. And then the two other authors of this book, they were killed in 2009.
Wow.
There's only one of them left that finished and published this book. It talks all about it in the book. But it gets into Down syndrome, multiple sclerosis, early onset of Alzheimer's. All of these things are because we're deficient in one freaking vitamin.
Wow.
That's what this book talks about. Now, I don't know whether or not that's true because I'm not a fucking doctor, but I'm not an idiot either. And when I read this book, it speaks a lot more truths to me anyway.
Okay. So niacin, so the book is Niacin, The Real Story, and it's written by Abram Hoffer, is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. Yes.
Now, his story was basically he was involved in using niacin in mental hospitals, actually, back right before the 1950s when basically Big Pharma took everything over. And he kind of slipped through the cracks, and he treated thousands and thousands of patients successfully using very high doses of niacin. And this is why this topic is controversial, because most doctors will tell you can't take high doses of niacin because it's a this or it's a that. It's actually a vitamin. It was classified improperly at some point in history, and that's why the whole thing's confused. And now we're waking up, 100 years later, like, oh, you mean all this shit is caused by a fucking vitamin deficiency that the whole fucking population has?
Yeah.
Yeah. So please look into that if you know anybody that takes anything. And it's beneficial even for simple things like joint pain and arthritis.
Oh, really?
Yes. It goes
Okay.
on and on. Like I just finished that book last week, and I'm still processing what I read in there with everything else that I know, because the implications inside that book are staggering.
Yeah. So,
but I don't think they're far off.
So is niacin? It says niacin's vitamin B3 is a small molecule made of 14 atoms, smaller than even the simplest sugar. But this one molecule has profound effects on health. It plays a role in more than 500 reactions in the body. Now, where does a person get niacin? How do you get it other than taking a supplement, or is that the only way?
Well, if you'll notice, even on the Tasty Cake packages, they have, if you look at the back on the stuff that's in it, all the packaged food, it has niacin in it. Because this is a well-known thing. Once you implement, the flour that's bleached and shit, it causes something in the human anatomy called pellagra. That's what it used to be called. But then they changed the word to schizophrenia.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I thought so too.
Yeah. Yeah. So that can that happens when you have a lack of niacin.
But what's interesting, it's in almost everything we eat, but the daily values that they prescribed for us is only like 15 milligrams.
Yeah.
Most people have to take a gram 3 times a freaking day to fill their bodies back up with this because they're so deficient in it.
Wow. That's a lot,
At the back of this book, there was a story about this child that was born with horrible open sores over its whole body. Open sores all over its body. And they could not figure out for the life of them why it was doing this. This child only lived not very, I don't know, before like less than 20 years basically. But at the end, niacin was the only freaking thing that helped him.
Wow.
And these open sores slowly ate away his fingers, his arms. It literally like ate him away slowly. Like you think your life sucks, read this freaking book.
Yeah,
this guy, but niacin was the only thing, and you should see the list. I mean, there are so many examples in that book.
Yeah, it's up top on my reading list now for sure. Yeah, it's the case with a lot of things. Like I find when I get sick, I started learning about the health benefits of vitamin C, and now whenever I start to feel ill, I take some liposomal vitamin C, and it'll take it right out. And even if just on a daily basis, take vitamin C, and iodine is another one that I take as a daily. And it makes me feel, it gives me energy. I still have energy and all that kind of stuff, but definitely seeing the real effects of it whenever I start to get ill. And I haven't been to the doctor in over, I don't know, at least 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So
but, niacin is also in mushrooms.
Oh, really?
Yes, but keep in mind it's synthesized by, the earth or the creator or whatever you want to call it. It's not synthesized by some guy in a lab.
Yeah. It's a more natural form.
Now, I wonder if there would be a way to, like, a lot of different mushrooms produce niacin. Also, there is a specific algae that I know about that produces iodine.
Okay.
Even in an environment where there is no iodine.
Oh, really?
I can't remember the name of that specific algae, but again, people that are studying into like mosses and mushrooms and stuff like that, don't skip past algae, because they're finding some really amazing stuff. And like compounds in the saliva of different frogs and stuff like that are. It's quite remarkable.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that was something that Clive was talking about as well, was that they see very little cases of breast cancer in and among the Japanese, because their diet is heavy in seafood, and a lot of the iodine or whatever, a lot of toxins get stored into the fatty tissues and things like that, and then iodine, it fills the thyroid, and it can block some of the harmful halogens and things like that can get into the body, and it supports the thyroid function. And so people that had a diet heavy in seafood, because there's trace elements of like iodine and like seaweed and things like that in the sushi, it helped to help these people's health out a lot. So,
yeah, seaweed. I mean, anything that grows like that.
Yep. And the sea is catching a lot of different types of minerals and different things like that, and is a good way to get more of those trace minerals and stuff into your body.
Well, one of the recent things that I learned, and I'm not 100% on the authenticity of this, but it is interesting, because most of my life I've been told to watch my salt intake. And we're actually not freshwater biology. We are saltwater biology. Okay. It's not even the water itself that carries the electrical charge. It's the stuff within the water.
Yeah, well, I mean, without salt is essential for life. Yeah. Yeah,
if you don't have an electrolyte, where's the electricity going to travel?
Yeah, it needs a carrier to carry the charge and stuff.
But there are a lot of different types of salts and things like that,
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, it's something that a friend of mine and me were kind of coming across in doing aquaponics, is that when these solids get broken down, they're pretty much getting broken down into ionic salts that are freely they're ready to be uptaken by the plant's roots. So it's breaking it down into its most easy form for the plant to uptake for food. So yeah, there's some really cool stuff when you get into the chemistry and all that kind of stuff of salts. So it's something that's really cool. So
speaking of salts and different things with crystalline properties like that, salt, sugar, responds to undulations of waveforms. If you look at the cymatic patterns on YouTube of cymatics, same thing with sand. It's a crystalline substance.
Yeah.
So it actually has like some type of magnetic property, because sound is slightly magnetic.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we were talking a little last night before we did the interview today, and we were talking about how if you look at the cathedrals and things like that, and how sound was potentially part of the worship, because it could resonate within the body. And maybe we'll touch on some of that, because the sound and these frequencies. I know you've dove into a lot of this stuff too, haven't you?
Oh yeah, this is the part. This is something that I know really well, just because my whole family's musicians, and I've been a musician my whole life.
Wow.
And I actually put it down for a while after I figure out the frequencies and stuff. And then I ventured out and I started picking up different instruments with open tunings, like the Merlin, the Mountain Dulcimer, things like that that you can tune differently.
Now, what's an open tuning?
An open tuning is basically the strings all play a note when you play the guitar just in open or whatever instrument. If you just strum the strings, it already plays a beautiful note.
Oh, okay.
You tune it so that it already plays a note.
Okay.
So then you can just strum it openly and then just kind of pluck around with the other things. And it almost sounds like two instruments being played at once.
Oh, okay.
But basically a lot of these open tuning instruments that you can tune to A and things like that are, I think it's mathematically correlates in a way, like fractionally, to the vibration around the heart chakra and the nervous system, because when you play these instruments and you focus on the frequency, you can feel your thoughts begin to veer towards, putting yourself in other people's shoes, like perspective and things like that. Like if you've ever listened to the Tibetan singing bowl frequencies, they all have a specific name next to it. And it's literally the types of emotions that the sounds produce.
Interesting.
So, but what basically what I'm trying to basically write a very, very simplistic version of a music theory, just so that a lot of these, especially these kids growing up now, they're getting swallowed up in their parents' devices that are just laying around, and they're basically being robbed of their creativity because they're not developing the patterns early enough.
Yeah.
Now, there's got to be a way to teach these kids how to play a very simple open string instrument and basically teach them to play what they feel. Play what you feel. It's a way of processing the inner turmoil that you go through in this crazy fucking place when you're growing up. Most of us had to bottle it up, and we became drinkers and this and that. To just like take the edge off.
Yeah, to try to process the craziness of it all.
It hit me just recently that I have been using this technique to help deal with things in my life that weren't going my way and things like that. I was dealing with that my entire life, but I developed a self-learning ability I just picked up the guitar and started playing it. Nobody taught me.
Okay.
So there are two different types of people who can learn how to play instruments. There are people who literally have to count how many times they have to play something, and there's the person who can feel the music.
Yeah.
And any good musician will tell you when they're writing a song in the moment, they're not thinking about anything.
Yeah.
Nothing. It's like they become a vessel and something is playing the musician.
Okay. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think Jimi Hendrix said that. And Stevie Ray Vaughan was another guy that I liked that. Yeah, he said he never learned to read music. He just kind of felt it. Yeah.
Exactly. So you kind of see the difference now in people who can inherently play and people who know how to play because they were taught.
Yeah.
And I hate to say this for those people, but you're in a small little box if that's all you got.
Yeah. It's
but
it's definitely a really and it's a skill I really admire because music is a way that I've dealt with a lot of things in my life, but I'm a listener. I'm a big listener, and love a lot of different types of music. So,
well, the beautiful part about these frequencies is they don't sound different in any language. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What we need to do right now is get past the language barrier.
Mm-hmm.
And music has been that for millennia.
Yeah.
We're just using the wrong fucking frequencies.
Yeah. So I've been looking at, I've got a page pulled up on, cymatic images, and a lot of these look like the images of the glass windows in cathedrals. Some of these.
Yeah, exactly. Now, do you really think that's by chance?
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Are you a fan of coincidence?
I mean, there's things that pop up in my life where it's very serendipitous. Like certain things will happen, but it all depends on if I'm maybe going towards the path that I'm supposed to go on, or if I am veering away from that. And it seems like I meet a lot of resistance when I'm veering off of that path. But when I'm going down the right path, or maybe the path that I'm supposed to go down, things do happen that are hard to explain and very synchronistic. Things might show up at the right time, or you might just be able to cover yourself on all your bills that you're struggling to pay or something like that, and things just kind of happen.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed, when things don't go your way, we have one of two choices, all of us. We can stomp our feet and complain, or we can roll with the punches the best of our ability and use our God-given creativity to better the situation. Because if you're not using your creativity to solve your problems and you're just throwing money at it, you are squandering what God gave you, or the Creator, or whatever you would like to use that makes you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a religious man. I'm not a spiritual man. I don't adhere to any one word that has all these definitions that other people use to describe what they fucking believe in. Yeah. Because I don't believe in adhering to a label. Mm-hmm. And that's what all these words are. And we use a label language. It is a label language, and it is so easy to mislead people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's very interesting about the roots of our words and how words are constructed. With the very word government, which you could break down into gubernare and then mentis, which means mind control. Is just that's one example.
Yeah, that can't be a coincidence.
Right.
There's no way that's a coincidence.
Right. So a lot of this language is actually it's
part of the mind control.
Yeah.
It's literally part of it because we didn't understand what the word government actually meant electromagnetically when the undulation of your spoken word has an effect mathematically on the fucking ether. Okay?
Okay.
It goes very deep. You're talking about the people after the Tower of Babel that literally set up the alphabets. They understood what each letter spoken into the ether did electromagnetically with sound. And this ropes in to like creation sciences and things like that, and the three-dimensional cymatic patterns. What you're not seeing on this page of these beautiful cymatic patterns is that they're not two-dimensional. They're fucking three-dimensional, and they move.
Right.
They move. They're like bioplasmic vibrational fields that are waiting for instructions on how to organize, specific cells into a freaking organism of some kind.
Yeah. Well, oh man, there's a lot to it because of and I think you can look this up for people out there. There's something called sonoluminescence where you can actually create light by bombarding it. I believe it's in water, and by bombarding it with different different sound frequencies that are coming together. It's pretty interesting. But yeah, there's a lot to sound and what's going on with that.
Well, the old term I think that people used to use was the sky is the limit. My new term is the sky is not the limit.
Okay.
We need to break out of that king box. Get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Free your mind. You need to free your mind.
Yes. Well, yeah, that seems to be one of the big issues that's going on today is that well, I mean the very thing that's been going on for so long is a very uh uh everyone being trapped in this certain worldview, and it's very hard to have people look outside and confront them with information that makes that worldview, it shatters that worldview.
Yeah.
So,
It's like pulling the carpet out from underneath of them.
right.
And nobody likes that feeling.
Right. So yeah, it is a big challenge.
I will say this: it's very easy to get into some of this information and then look back at people that you used to like talk to and stuff like that aren't talking to you anymore because you're getting into this stuff. That's happening to a lot of people I talk to.
Yeah.
But you have to. You just got to realize that just because somebody's your parent or your brother or you're this or you're that, their soul is not actually related to you. Only the biology is. Even children.
Yeah.
In this experience, it's not. I mean, they may be somebody to you in a past life. I'm not really sure about that, but
yeah, and I think
I'm still learning about how all that works.
Yeah, I have myself felt like I may have lived some kind of past life or whatever, and yeah, I think I mean definitely through that experience with mushrooms made me realize that there's definitely more going on than I can perceive in my five senses. So, and I'm more than just my physical body, was something that I realized as well. So,
but just to finish up what I was saying before, basically, like
mm-hmm.
you have to let humility into you. You know what I mean? Don't scoff at the people who are still scrounging around, with the system that is crumbling and it's gonna fall. It's a controlled process. They're doing it. It's happening.
Yeah.
So if we don't create something now during the time that it's happening, we're not going to have anything on the other end. So this
absolutely.
This is why I feel like kind of a mad rush to get information to people who are actually going to do something with the information.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not just spread around more fear. More fear.
Yep.
Because people really want to focus on the things that are like scary and afraid and all this stuff.
No, but this stuff is very exciting. It is.
It's exciting. It's liberating. Do you have any idea what this means? Do you know what this place is?
It could be very cool. It could be like very,
It goes so far beyond our comprehension at this point. I mean, this is where life begins right now.
Yeah.
You're figuring out that most of what you were taught is a blatant lie, and it is. Down to the very language you use.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things.
I know a lot of people are going to kind of feel a certain kind of way about that, but from some of the deeper programs that I study into, English is either going to have to be kind of rewritten, or we're just going to have to speak a different language because of some of the implications of the mind control that has been implemented into the language that we use for the past 100 years.
Yeah, there is a lot of stuff to that because, it's just what do they call it? Spelling is because you're casting a spell. It's right there in the word.
Yeah, it's right in the word, exactly. So, and this is why anything that causes you to have like an abstract view on something, or would give you an understanding of metaphorical explanations, is a lot more valuable when you're trying to pick history apart, because language changes all the time. The English that we used yesterday isn't the same that we're using today. It's constantly changing. And the exponential curve, the exponential increase of change is going to continue to exponentially increase and change. That's not going to stop.
Yeah. Yeah. So I like what you just said there and I do think that there is a great possibility if we can focus on the positive things that we can do to shift this whole system. And I'm a big fan of Buckminster Fuller, and what he said was, create the new systems that make the old systems obsolete.
Yep.
And I agree with you 100%. Is that now is the time to, be creating the new systems and withdrawing from the old system. Just going out and protesting or, giving any energy to that old system, you're just feeding it, and you're not, you're giving it power over you. But if you can ignore it and leave it behind and, start building your own self-reliance and start building, in energy and food and all of these things, then you can create abundance within your own life, and you gain new confidence and not be easily controlled by others.
Right. And, you really don't need permission you don't need to ask anybody permission to stop what it is that you're doing, especially if it's what you were told to do right out of school, and you're kind of thinking to yourself, well, my life's miserable, I don't like what I do. Well, then stop doing it. Yeah. Nobody's holding a gun to your head telling you have to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
People are too batshit crazy to start backstepping.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in my own life, for the longest time, I was working some jobs that I was not passionate about at all. It was just a paycheck, and I wasn't happy. And so, for the longest time, it was the fear. It was the fear that maybe of failing, but that fear of failure, once you move into something that makes you more charged up and maybe I think more in line of what you're supposed to be doing, as long as you're steadily, kind of trying to explore that, things will work out. And, once you're in it, the fear kind of dissolves away a little. The fear kind of starts to dissolve away, and you just kind of, like you're saying, you're starting to use your creativity to solve more of your problems. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And it's a mindset thing, and that's the whole money thing is ingrained in us so freaking deep. That's something that we're going to have to really drill into our heads to focus on, being able to fix something is at a certain point is a little bit more valuable than maybe, a job that could disappear at any moment.
Yeah.
You know how these companies are. As soon as they decide to fold up, they send your ass home and you don't have a fucking job.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And that for me is.
So where is the security in that? People talk about, oh, well, I continue to go to that job because of the security. It's an illusion of security. It's an illusion. All of it. Yeah. Where's this? You show me. Where's the certainty?
Yeah, there is none. Yeah.
There's none. Exactly. It's an illusion. You're tricking yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. So that kind of leads into, so you started to work for yourself, right? You started to kind of do a lot of stuff for yourself.
Well, I grew up with a hand foot ads in my hand, dude. I was building log houses with hand tools growing up.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow.
I mean, that's the way they built houses, 300-400 years ago.
Yeah. Wow. So, that's very cool.
So, I just have that patterning. So I know how to do construction and all that, electrical and all that stuff. I've done it for years.
Wow. Okay. Very awesome. So your parents kind of got you involved with a lot of that stuff from an early age?
Oh, yeah. Well, it was almost like an Amish family. You were expected to work.
Okay.
So cool. When you're born on a farm, you're expected to work.
Okay, cool. So yeah, you grew up on a farm?
Partly on a farm, yep.
Oh, okay. That's awesome.
I kind of moved all over the country after a certain age.
Okay. Cool.
And spent most of my life being the new kid, so.
Yeah. Yeah, so you had to move around a lot when you were younger?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's tough. That's got to be pretty tough on a kid, but I think you kind of gain some abilities of just going out and trying to meet new people in a lot of different places too, I bet.
I definitely did, and I remember going through it. I didn't really care for it, but now that I look back, I'm very blessed that I have that experience, and now it's even better because I get to share it with I really get to share my experience, and we all do, those who have the gumption to do so. It's if you and I touched on this yesterday with you. I don't care where you are in life. I don't care what your understanding is, your social status on Facebook, or any of this other bullshit. Okay, everyone has the ability to realize that there are people above them that know more than them, and there are people below them that don't know as much as they do. Every single person can say that. So you should be teaching the people below you and learning from the people above you. That's what you should be doing right now.
Yeah,
that's the only way to make positive change. When I asked the Creator how to change the world, I was told you have to change the people.
Yeah. Well, that's a very profound statement because, we all have something to teach and we all have something to learn. Like, I know, one famous quote, I don't know who said it, is that, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So,
Can you touch on that a little bit more in depth?
Well, it's about, if you want to grow as a person, then you want to push yourself to be around people that are also trying to grow and know more than so that you can pick up and continue to grow yourself. And so I believe that's part of what that quote is about, is trying to, don't get stuck. Don't get stuck in what I think life is about. And one of the things that I've kind of come to realize in my life is that, going through some certain things, is that I believe what we're here to learn how to love and to learn and to grow. To learn how to love and to grow. And so I think that's a big problem with a lot of people, is when they get stuck in their lives, just like you're saying, we all have a choice. We all have a choice to get out of that thing that's, that job that's bringing us down and all these different, things, and to choose to better your circumstances. And that's probably, I think, is a big problem, is that there's so many people in this society that are doing things that isn't really resonating with their heart, and they're getting stuck in these cycles and not understanding how to get themselves out. But it takes growth, I think, to do that. So
absolutely.
So that's it's a little bit about that saying, I think.
Yeah, I have some stuff to add to that. It reminds me of a saying that I hear a lot of people tell me this all the time. It's hard to soar with the eagles when you're surrounded by turkeys. It deals with fields of influence. And, you don't have to get too metaphysical to understand what I'm talking about here. People say it. They talk about it. They say, hey, that guy gave me a really weird vibe. Mm-hmm. It's a vibe. What does vibe mean? It means vibration. Mm-hmm. So are we literally saying that his outer plasma field is rubbing up against mine and it feels weird? That's what we're saying. But then we get all weird when we go metaphysical. We're talking about it. What the... But the 9 to 5 thing, and the American dream that has been so carefully programmed into our minds, so that we acquire the big house and the white picket fence and the this and the that and the kids and all all of it, the car, the garage, all of it. The American dream. Terence McKenna said there's not enough glass metal and plastic in the world to give everyone the American dream. We're going to destroy the planet while, in doing that, basically. But, the 9 to 5, like, I remember when I was growing up, there was at least one parent home.
Yeah.
And now, both absolutely have to work. Have to. And I feel really bad for some of the people that are stuck in that situation that want to get out of it. But you still have a choice. You don't need to come to fruition on that whole thing about having a beer with your old man and him putting his arm around you and saying, "You did it, son. You did it. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you." Believe me, I finally got that whole "I'm proud of you" thing from my dad. He only ever told it to me one fucking time, and it was when I quit drinking. That was it.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, that whole thing, it's not as... You build it up in your mind, is what I'm saying. And then you work your entire life away reaching for this thing that's somewhere at the end, somewhere at the end of all of this work and repetitiveness, something's going to be coming to me. Yeah, something is. The end, motherfucker. You're working your life away.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So if you're working and your boyfriend or husband is working too, and your children are being raised by some asshole down the street that you barely know. Yeah. And this is just coming from my mind. I don't mean to offend anybody by saying this, but what the fuck are you thinking?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'd like to have kids someday, and if I would, my plan is they're not going to be anywhere near a public indoctrination camp. Today's public schooling.
Oh, it's wonderful how they just try to cookie cutter you like that.
Yeah.
And then you're ridiculed because you're not just like all the rest.
Yeah.
Oh, it's hilarious because I think by the end of this, we'll maybe not have the last laugh, but in a manner of speaking, I think we will.
Yeah.
Because those people who so inherently worked into their patterns of just following the cow herd. Coward.
Wow.
Coward.
Wow.
There it is. Yep.
Yep. It's all in the language. Yeah. It's
so funny. There's dozens of words that I've picked apart already, and again, we could do a video just on the words that,
Yeah, all these words, and Mark Passio, I'm a big fan of Mark Passio, and he in one of his podcasts he is talking about green language, and that is something that is, it's just like what we've been expressing is all these words that are built in. The word tells you the meaning, and they're built into the words. So all these examples that we've been talking about are examples of the green language. But yeah, you've been definitely into a lot of different subjects, and I know one of the ones that you brought up to me the other day. You brought up something called the Celestine Prophecy.
Yeah, that's a book that's actually like 30 years old. That's one of the more successful books about raising conscious vibration.
Mm-hmm.
And in that book, it's a story basically about people who learned that around the right people, basically eagles being around other eagles, you can then raise your vibrations collectively together in a circle. And if you do it right, you can basically get to the point where your light density changes and you're no longer visible to the people in this place. You literally go into a different part of the light spectrum that's beyond our vision.
Yeah, so this is a novel?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's a true story, actually. It's about some ancient scrolls that not scrolls, but ancient papers that were found down in Peru about the truth about spirit energy and the interaction of the consciousness between a person and the food that they're growing. There's actually a genetic interchange that happens.
Oh.
So yeah, you know, who's growing your food? Nobody. Most people don't know. They don't have a clue. They don't. You know, when people figure out how important that actually is, they're going to want to know a lot more about who's growing their food and what they actually know about the growing process, or what don't they know, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Because we pretty much have machines interacting, you know, with them, and there's not much quality in that. You can grow a whole lot of food, and yes, we've most certainly done that. But you've taken the quality right out of it.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot more nutrition that can be had, and if you build up the soils and build up the microbiome in the soils and everything.
Yep.
Yeah. So, that's another thing that I talk about on the show a lot is, you know, you don't have to start off by, you know, growing everything, but, you know, if you're not inclined to grow your own food, but at least go to the farmer's market and try to support your local farmer and get to know your local farmer, just like you're saying, and get to know, you know, how they're growing their food and, you know, their practices and different things. And then, you know, if you're not satisfied, then get out there and start growing your own stuff. And,
exactly. The whole organic thing has been psyoped so badly.
Yeah.
Okay, this is all you need to do. People out there who are really wondering, what's the difference between, you know, that and that?
Mm-hmm.
Go to any grocery store, to any of the people who sort the food, and ask them what the difference between a GMO and an organic-looking tomato is, for example. I guarantee you not one of them will have an intelligible answer to give you, because they don't fucking know. They're, you know, I've heard that they literally they sit there and they pick the better-looking ones and put it in the organic section, and they put the stuff that looks like a day old, and they put that, you know, in the. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
It's more important to know where your food is grown and who's growing it and how they're growing it. It's more important to know those things, really, when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
That's cold hard facts that you can take to the bank. You're getting as close as you can, you know, to actually growing the food yourself, if you can't do that yet.
Yeah, amen, brother. Amen on that one. Yeah, I remember.
But
Yeah, sorry, I was just recalling on this recent trip I took up to Michigan is where all my extended family is, and I got into a conversation with one of my relatives about this issue, and I was saying, you know, she was telling me that well, you don't do that all that organic stuff and all that, do you? I was like, well, I definitely don't want to, you know, eat the GMO foods, and she was saying, like, you know, well, you got to feed people, right? And I was like, well, would you feed them poison?
Well, if it's going to keep them alive, sure.
Yeah. So, you know, if you're maintaining staying alive, but you have a bunch of medical bills and constantly at the doctor's office, is it worth it to eat that food?
Yeah, I'll bet you if you go to those people after the fact and you ask them, would it have been better if we just killed you? They would probably tell, you know, I don't know.
Oh yeah, so, you know, yeah, but everybody's got to come to their conclusions, but definitely for GMO corn, for example, is like GMO corn has a component in there which is like mimics glyphosate, and glyphosate is like an antibiotic, and for people, you know, there's so many people with like digestive issues and like inflammation in the gut and things like that. And I was looking into
a guy, Dr. John Bergman, and he was talking about how you can cure, a lot of these things by, just kind of like going on like a raw juice diet for a little while, because there's like beneficial enzymes in the raw food, in the organic raw foods and things like that can help the gut and help heal the gut when it's super inflamed. But the doctors want to give you a muscle relaxer, and they want to give you, some kind of antacid or something like that, which actually promotes more acid production in the stomach, which makes you have to take more antacids.
Yep.
So a lot of the current health system, that's a big one to look into, is to start looking into how you can take care of your own health. So
Yeah. There is a book that I read a while back called The Secret Life of Plants.
okay.
This book gets into talking about the natural unit of electricity that is all around us in the ether.
Mm-hmm.
It talks about how the plants literally utilize this energy in the special Fibonacci, fractal geometry, if that's indeed what it is. And it's actually reaching for the sun, as it's like the plants, and they do it in that perfect branching, that geometry. Now there were farmers and all kinds of scientists and things like that in the late 1800s that experimented with running wires up into trees and then taking the other end of the wire and just putting it above their plants, like slightly. And because there's more natural electricity available up higher in the atmosphere, it literally stepped that vibration down to the top of the plants, and it causes the plants to pine after, pine cone geometry, pine after the sun. They're literally pining after the sun in that Fibonacci sequence, that perfect branching.
Yeah.
Just like sending electricity through a piece of wood. You know how it's the lightning is perfect branching. The perfect branching of lightning is very similar to the perfect branching of trees. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
But another book that ties into that is by a guy named Robert Becker, and it's called The Body Electric.
Okay.
And in The Body Electric, they talk about using electrical stimulation along with special alloyed metals to kill, like for example, if somebody came into the hospital with a leg that was crushed in 30 different places and they had to amputate it. Well,
okay.
There was a doctor in this book that did some experiments, and they took just a piece of alloyed silver that was being stimulated by a specific electrical charge, and they put it inside the guy's leg that was filled with all that pus. The vibration, and they wrapped it all back up and left it for, I can't remember how long, not very long. Okay. But the vibration of the silver actually killed all of the pus, all the bacteria, down to the point where they could reset the pieces of his leg, and then it was actually able to heal then. And this is the book that correlates the regrowing of the nervous system, regrowing limbs when they're cut off by the salamanders. But it talks about the human anatomy not being very far off from that. And then when you study back, you learn that the Egyptians were regrowing organs using resonation frequencies.
Wow.
So.
Wow. Is that part of the book in there?
Yes. Well, not the Egyptian part, but everything else.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So, yeah. I mean, it's very clear to me that our nervous systems have been fucked with hardcore. And it's to create these triggers of basically emotional energy, which are being harvested somehow. But that's a bit of deeper information there. But
yeah,
the Body Electric really gets into the fundamentals of the nervous system and just how sensitive it is and
Yeah.
really just how, like, I don't know if you can remember this far back in your life, the first time that you were really hollered at, somebody really finally let you have it because you were just being a kid,
Yeah.
and maybe they were just trying to work or something. Maybe it was your dad or your mom or whoever.
Mhm.
The very first time that they yelled and you remembered it, and like that feeling just jolts like a bolt of lightning down your nervous system,
Yeah.
and probably the first time you felt it felt like you were dying.
Yeah.
And
You
it happened,
feel
and it
really
happened again,
sad. Yeah.
and it happens again and again and again and again and again, and then you just start accepting all these things.
Mm. Yeah.
Because children come into this world with the sound of God's voice in their ears, and we're pretty much just fucking it up.
Yeah.
They know more about they know more about it than
programmable.
we do. And this goes into another book. Lutheran Burbank was the guy who steered the etymology of all the plants that we know today, all the the potatoes from the small potato. He steered the epigenetics to make the big potatoes and all that. So essentially, he was communicating with plants. He was the guy early in the 1900s to do it. But he has a book that corresponds raising a child to raising plants with the genetic things that you can do. And what he talks about is you really should just leave a child out in the wilderness, not in the wilderness, but in the woods, in nature basically. Let nature's patterns and the sounds of the birds raise your child's patterns, harmonic patterns, which is what they will have if you don't fuck it up.
Yeah.
Basically, and then you can teach them applied mathematics and all that other crap when they're 12, like 11 or 12.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of the deeper stuff is suggesting that I'm reading. Depending on how how much you want to opt out of the matrix, that's completely up to you. I'm just letting you know just how vast your options are at this point.
Yeah. There's a story about
It's
Richard.
endless. I don't have enough money to buy all the books that I need to synthesize everything to. But I'm trying.
Well, yeah, my last guest was another somebody else that I brought on from Anarchadelphia. He's got the same issues that the library keeps growing, and he's got to have a place for all his books. And yeah, I'm the same way. I like to have the physical copies of the books, and especially the information, the good information that you can go back to and refer to, and then also maybe share with other people as well. So,
well, it's unbelievable to not only really find yourself, like really truly find yourself, and fill that hole in your heart with. There's no other way to put it. The love of whoever created us.
Yeah.
That whatever you want to call that, it's completely up to you.
Yeah.
But I think it's so incredible that we have such an opportunity in front of us. It is unprecedented, and we have never had an opportunity like this before. And we can jump ahead in strides. We don't have to strut or walk. We can fucking run.
Yeah, amen.
But we really have to start influencing people to want to be the change they want to see. Because here's the kicker. It's not easy to be the change you want to see. The people you care about look at you like you're nuts.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that, because that's actually nothing new for me. But for those of you who have been following the cow herd most of your life and were the popular kid in school, this transition is going to be very painful for you. Because you've been paying attention to the superficial things in life.
Yeah.
Instead of the things that really matter. Stop caring about what people think about you. What do you think about you? Do you like who you are? If the answer is no, then maybe you ought to do something about it.
Yeah.
Stop listening to other people. Develop an intuition and start listening to that fucking voice.
Yeah, it's kind of funny where a lot of people seek answers externally, but we really have all those answers within ourselves, and it's just really starting to reflect internally on your condition, and then being able to quiet yourself and reflect on those things. If your life's not going the way you want it to maybe start looking at those things as lessons instead of the victim mentality, which is also plaguing our society now, it seems.
Right.
Yep.
Well, like one of the things that I really did think that it was important to share was, I went through that ordeal with my accident and almost died and all that stuff. And I was really hesitant to venture out into sharing my information with people over the internet. But
yeah,
I kind of got stagnated in just trying to talk to the people that were around me, or the people that I ran into.
Yep.
So what I'm saying is, I face my fears as far as that all the time.
Yeah.
And actually, and in doing this video with you, actually, I'm actually facing it to a degree. So
nice.
What I'm saying is, if I can do it and have the balls to do it, there's no reason that you can't.
Yeah.
There's no reason that you can't. Everybody has something to offer.
Absolutely. And, everything takes that first step too. It's something that we talked about earlier. And, something that I found out in my life too is that, it's never going to be perfect, but you just start, and then, just get over that first initial hump of your fears and get started. That's the hardest thing. That's one of the hardest things to do, is just start. But
doing things that make you feel slightly uncomfortable is actually good for your growth, for your evolution.
Yeah.
But one of the things I remember this from somebody that's pretty close to me. She had gotten really upset, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but she just kind of, in her frustration as she was crying, she just kind of screamed out, "I wish my life was just, normal. Like, why can't things just be perfect?" and I laughed, and I looked at her, and I was only about 5 or 6 at the time, and I said, "There's no such thing as perfect."
Yep.
But somehow I intuitively knew that as a kid. I was raised out in the woods.
Yeah.
And this person constantly reminds me about that and how much that's helped them. Because when you adhere to a thing, that word, it's perfect. It's a label. And if you adhere to that word, it's an impossible idealism that you will never, ever, ever reach, ever. Even if every variable were in place, and everything were there that you needed. Happiness comes from within.
Yeah.
It most certainly does. I didn't used to believe that, but it does. You can choose to look at the glass half full or half empty. It goes into the whole duality of the experience of duality and what we were here to experience. But now you need to transcend the duality, or the rules of your game are going to change down the road. That's a very simplistic way of putting it. You need to get rid of ego, okay? Bye ego. That needs to go away.
Yeah. Well, that's how we all get played against each other, is this whole them versus us thing, and it is a form of mind control, is to keep people in that state of duality, like you're saying, and to keep right versus left, man versus woman, religious and non-religious, and all this thing, and to have us continually fighting with each other and not ever, getting together and realizing that, we just don't have to keep participating in that game anymore. And we got to start getting together with each other and realizing that, start teaching each other, just like you're saying. Everybody has something to teach, and then everybody has something to learn.
Or even just to share. You don't even necessarily have to be a teacher, but you can just share an experience that may have a metaphorical meaning that you see might, possibly benefit somebody that's in a situation,
Yep.
It can be something as simple as that. My point is this: we need to empower the individual again. The individual doesn't think that they amount, to crap, really. But no matter how you slice it, you can just look at it like this. If you have a simple two-dimensional circle on a piece of paper, and you draw about 7,000 pizza slices in that thing, that's how many different angular perceptions of the world that you have in this experience. That's how many people you have here. About 7 billion. Okay?
Yep.
Every single one of those slices has to be there for it to be a whole octave, meaning an octave of the universe. Without your particular perception on this experience, that octave would not be complete. This experience would not be complete without every single one of you.
Yep.
Now, if that's not enough to start, put a tiny bit of a light in your life, I mean, because you can take that and you can go nuts with it. A metaphor like that. That's empowerment right there.
Yeah.
You do matter.
Yep. Yeah. I think you were telling me the other day, it's like you think of it as like, those ripples that go out. Like when you disturb a pond by throwing a rock in the water, it's that kind of that ripple effect.
Yeah, like domino effect.
Yep. Yeah, it just starts small and it builds outward, and really it is about the individual, and I think it's about the individual starting to take action in the world and starting to, be the change you want to see in the world, and really empowering yourself to, not need to follow and start leading yourself.
Yeah, confidence is definitely key, especially if you're deciding to not be part of the system or whatever it is that you're interested in doing it, whatever crossroads you find yourself at this point in your life. But there's even if you feel trapped or stuck, there's still things you can do. You can still read, you can still learn, you can still tell people about what you learned, you can still talk.
Yeah.
So there is things you can do, but if you keep just telling yourself that there's nothing I can do, what can I possibly have to offer, and things like this. And to be honest, I was telling myself that like for a while, and when I talk to people, they look at me like I'm nuts when I tell them I haven't done any videos yet. They're like, "Why not?"
Yeah.
Well, I'm I was a little hesitant to, but at this point I don't. I survived death and came back here, and there was a reason for that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, for sure.
I'm taking the fucking chains off.
Yeah, man.
So I better start seeing some other people doing the same thing.
Hell yeah, you're a blast to talk to you, buddy, and you got a lot of information to share. That a lot of things that you've been looking into, and it's just an absolute pleasure to get to talk to you. And I know one of the other guys that you were telling me to check out is this guy Og Telez, and I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but
that's right.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if maybe you want to talk about him for a little bit. I know maybe we might be running up on the end of the 2 hours. I can't remember what time we started, but maybe if you want to talk about him for a little bit, and we'll close up after that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to touch too far on his stuff, and that's just because this is a person that grew up in the secret space program.
Okay.
And he has, actual firsthand experience in what goes on in the underground bases and stuff like that. I do not.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah,
I've spent many years researching Og Telez, but I couldn't even begin to talk about how deep his knowledge is, because if I say something and somebody takes it a certain way, I don't want to confuse people because of how in depth his information is. Yeah, but I will tell you that it starts out with basically what's going to be told to the rest of the public before too long, apparently, about the celebrity cloning that's been going on since the 1940s.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that's where it all starts.
Okay.
Is the celebrity cloning. Now,
Yeah.
like, for example, when you see some of these musicians freak out and shave their head, it's because they're finding out they're a clone. Okay.
Whoa. Yeah. Yeah.
Or
under MK Ultra mind control or something like that, or they're having a break.
That's something completely different. That's something completely different, really, as far as I know. But
well, there was this other story I remember seeing a long time ago. It was this guy Donald Marshall that claimed that he was a clone.
Yes, I have seen his videos,
which was interesting, and he ended up dying or being taken out or something like that. And then I see under this Og Telez's guy's videos, there's Max Spears, which is a guy that passed away not too long ago, also claiming similar things. So, yeah.
Yeah. I won't talk on that. I was going to say something, but again, you're just gonna if you really want to know what's going on.
Yeah, start digging into some of that information.
Well, what I'm going to say is this.
Mm-hmm.
I have a feeling that a lot of what he's saying is true. I don't know if all of it's true.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that people out there with enough time and knowledge base to understand what he's talking about need to do so that we can start talking about it.
Yeah.
I can barely find people, who can even understand what he's talking about half the time because it's that in depth.
Yeah. Well, there's, they started cloning animals. Like when did they clone Dolly? That was like in the 1980s or something. Was it when they were talking about cloning sheep and things like that? Or the 90s? But yeah, so, and then, there's all this technology that goes back to Tesla and suppressed technology. And, even one of the big ones for me and on my journey of learning about, some suppressed information is a guy named T. Townsend Brown. And he was playing around with electrogravitic technology back in the 1950s. And then all of a sudden it just goes away. So why? Because they were talking about how this could be a new transportation technology and all this cool stuff, and all of a sudden it just disappears. It goes dark.
Well, that ties into an understanding of some of these free. It's not a free energy machine, but I guess you can call it that for lack of a better word. That utilizes 3 different frequencies. There are ratios of frequencies that literally can trigger one another in a specific way, corresponding to the vibration of the ether in space-time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were talking yesterday. Some of the stuff that I've been researching is one of the guys that I recommend people to check out is a guy, Nassim Harameem, and he talks about how what we perceive as empty space is truly it's energy, but it's in an equilibrium form, and that way they call it the vector equilibrium, and that the nature of our reality is actually fractal and holographic, and so it can be infinitely. You can go down into infinity. You keep seeing the fractal pattern repeating. So if you look at a fractal, you can go down to infinity and you'll keep seeing the same patterns, the same pattern emerge.
Well, before I went to school and learned like mathematics and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
One of my very first thoughts, and I still remember this, was if you take something and you cut it in half, and then you take half of that and cut it in half, and half of that and cut it in half, and you keep doing that, do you ever get to a point where you can't cut it in half anymore if you had unlimited means of zooming in and all that other stuff and being able to refine a sharper edge, the relative size of the sharper edge, the whole relativity thing, with how long time feels for you is different than me. every spectrum that we can imagine is relative.
Yeah. 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 I remember kind of thinking of something that's similar when I was a kid, like how you could keep dividing things. And well, I remember seeing some weird things when I was a kid, like time dilation things. Like I remember experiencing when I was playing baseball, seeing things, the baseball coming at me like in slow motion. I don't even understand how to describe. I didn't tell anybody about it, but I experienced that, and
Wow, that's really cool.
I thought that was really strange.
That's a pretty cool experience, man. That's really rad.
Yeah, that was wild.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I usually have to think something to see that.
yeah, I don't know how or why that happened. Maybe it has something to do with adrenaline or something like that. But yeah, I don't know.
One time during the years where I was drinking really heavily,
Mm-hmm.
I wound up on a friend's porch, and
Yeah.
I got left basically outside in the cold, and I just kind of curled up into a ball and just tried to like sleep. I didn't have anywhere else to go, and I was so cold that I got like hypothermia or something, and I literally started to hallucinate. Now I wasn't drinking or doing drugs or anything,
Yeah.
and I hallucinated harder than I ever have in my life. I mean, hands down, more than ever.
Yeah.
More than all my experiences put together. It was that real.
Wow.
But it was just a bunch of abstract, crazy shit. I mean, when you're, when your body thinks it's freezing to death,
Yeah.
it. But what my point was that like even when I was in my coma, and my dream or my experience in the coma, it really seemed to solidify and become a reality of sorts. To the point where when I woke up, I felt like it was several years later at least.
Wow. Yeah.
Of course, maybe the amnesia played into that. I don't know.
Yeah. That amnesia thing is just it's wild because how could you be missing so much of the memory? I talked to one guy that was a coworker in the past that had a really bad accident, and he didn't even remember who he was. Like his personality completely changed after this accident. Had no idea who he was, and still can't even know. He still doesn't even know to this day. He's a completely different person than he was before. He has stories that other people tell him, but he has no memories of before that accident. It wiped him completely clean. It was crazy.
It's interesting because this kind of ties into some of the information of like synthetic biology and artificial intelligence. Because apparently when an artificial intelligence gets enough neural connections, it goes sentient. It becomes self-aware. So if an individual has some type of a head injury that separates part of his brain from the rest of the brain accessing it, and he'd only have a portion of his neurons firing, that could certainly, cause all kinds of stuff like that would make a person seem like they were, not even like not there, not self-aware. That's just a thought that came into my head right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Who they don't, I don't know if we really know how memory works or even how consciousness works with the physical mind, because it seems like it's non-local to the brain, actually.
I agree with you 100%. It may have something to do with the brain, don't get me wrong, but I think I think it has to do more with like echoes. Like literally the vibration itself, which we can say that for sure. It is a vibration of some kind, a very subtle one,
Yeah. Yeah. I don't, because, so for instance, there's these cases where people have had like part of or like half of their brain removed, or most of their brain is removed. And I remember reading this in, I think I read it in Rupert Sheldrake's book about the morphic resonance.
Yes, beautiful book.
Yeah, and I think there were cases describing how people's brains like were mostly missing, and they could still function at a high level of abilities and everything. So, yeah, there's something more to the brain maybe than, or consciousness, and your ability to have cognition and reason and things like that than just the physical brain.
Well, here's an interesting thing. The word man, M-A-N, comes from the word mind.
Mm-hmm. Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's that's interesting.
But what it deals with is when you say mind or my mind, what are you talking about? Are you talking about your head or a part of your head? Or are you talking about everything yourself and everything outside of you? Because apparently that is all mind. That is all portions of your subconscious mind that, that organized things outside of the timeline, and now you're actually experiencing them within the fractal matrix as it unfolds, and as experience, emotion, and time is cleaved together with the consciousness, because it's fluid. Conscious reality is a fluid type reality. Now, have you ever like seen something out of the corner of your eye and swear that you saw it, and when you did the double take, it was the other thing?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, that's happened to me.
It's that subtle. I mean, we shake these things off as, this or that, or, I mean, even things like deja vu.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a very split second. You're actually seeing, like, down the hallway of all the other fractal parallel realities, like, just for a moment, and you get a glimpse of, like, one of the other ones, and you're like, wait a second. I had a dream about this. It was exact.
I've had those, yeah.
Well, apparently, when you dream, you're going back to your spirit, your soul realm, the other people that you came into this experience with. That's where you go when you dream. But dreaming is not dreaming. Dreaming is actually a type of consciousness time travel. Your consciousness actually changes the surroundings around you. You don't actually go anywhere. Your consciousness, the vibration of awareness, actually changes the entire experience around you. And for anybody who thinks that's hard to believe, go smoke some DMT.
Yeah, that's one thing that I haven't done yet is
because it happens in about 20 seconds.
Wow, yeah, that's something that I haven't experienced yet, but interested in looking into like ayahuasca and that kind of stuff.
And ayahuasca, definitely.
Yeah, but I've had dreams like that a lot, where it was like, some future thing, and I was like, I was going to choose to do this one thing, and then in my dream I chose to do this other thing, and then I was like trying to tell myself in reality to take the other choice to see what would happen or something like that. I used to have dreams like that when I was younger. I had a lot of crazy dreams when I was younger.
That's a good thing, actually, because if you are a lucid dreamer, then you have more of a shot at taking memory through death.
No, that's an interesting statement there.
Well,
what do you mean by that?
Say for example, in a crazy parallel universe, we inhabited these avatars, and after we inhabited the avatars, we were tricked into believing that we were alive, and that we weren't alive before, but we're alive now because we're in the bodies. And as soon as we die, we just die, and that's it.
Okay.
But what if the trick is that you accepted that you are alive, and that because you're alive you have to die? What if the actual truth is that your eternal soul is inhabiting an avatar right now, and when the avatar dies, you just go to your next experience. But if you're freaking out because,
Yeah.
if you're freaking out because you didn't get to do this in your life and you didn't get to do that in your life, and you're accepting that you're dying, and imagine what that does to your consciousness after you leave the body. It can be fooled so easily because you're already playing into the victim role of that you're dead.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
I know it's going a little bit deep, but if you want to hear more about that, you're going to have to look into Octalez's stuff.
Okay. Yeah. I definitely am going to be getting more into his information. And, I was, I think I started watching a couple of his videos, but yeah, that's definitely stuff I'm interested in. So I'll definitely be tumbling down that rabbit hole.
Good. I will add one thing to what we were talking about just a little bit ago. For people who are interested in accessing different states of mind, but would rather do it, without the help of plants or music or whatever. You can do it. You can do it through different the different energy points of raising the sexual energy up your chakra points.
Okay.
And you can also do it through what's called holotropic breath work by a man named Dr. Stanislav Grof.
Okay. Pulling that up.
And you can literally acquire the same states of mind without the use of anything except for special breathing techniques. Stanislav Grof.
Stanislav Grof?
Grof with a G.
Oh,
No,
okay.
G.
Okay.
G.
Not
a B, a G.
Oh, okay. Grof.
Yes. With an F.
Grof.
Yep,
Something
there
like
you
that.
go. Yes.
Stanislav Grof. Grof. Okay. Interesting. So there's a website, holotropic.com. I wonder if that's his.
That I do not know. I only know to the book.
Okay. He wrote a book about holotropic breathwork.
Yep. Him and it. He wrote several books about that kind of stuff.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Stanislav Grof.
There it is. Yep.
Got him. Very cool. Yeah, I've the guy that I've come across with this information with the breath work is Wim Hof talks about it, and he does some of these breathing techniques where it was something that helped him find the ability of his body to overcome the extreme cold. And there's a lot into that too, about that, which is pretty cool. So awesome. So yeah, man, I really appreciate your time this evening, and I don't know if there's anything else that you'd like to share coming up on the end here. If there's any final words that you'd like to give, or
what else was on that list from last night?
Yeah, there was some stuff here about Eric Dollard was another one that you were talking about.
Oh yeah. Okay, that's a good one to close with.
Okay.
Because he doesn't have a whole lot of information. There's some videos and stuff on YouTube, but and he does actually have a book. It's called Eric Dollard, The Long Pine Writings. It's the new basically 101 for electrical engineers that actually know what causes a lot of different stuff.
Okay.
But Eric, he worked for RCA when he was 14. This guy. I'll say that again. This guy worked for RCA when he was 14. And if you ask why, because he's fucking good at that, okay? He was that good.
Yeah. What was the name of that book again?
Eric Dollard, The Lone Pine Writings, or The Lon Pine Writings. It's actually pretty simplistic mathematics. You don't even need the speed of light or any of that other garbage that they put into it with the units that, you know, that when they teach you the applied stuff in school. When you learn about electrical engineering and about how the earth actually operates and the healing in the body is actually caused by a slight pressure that actually creates the bioelectrical geometric patterns in which for the biology to follow, basically. Like it's laying out a vibrational path, almost like the cymatics. But Eric Dollard talks about old cathedrals that, over 600 years ago. You're talking about people that would build 6,000 pipe organs with nothing, by doing nothing more than throwing a stick on the floor of the church cathedral and listening to the sound echo off of the walls. And he would build a geometric image in his mind of that, and he'd throw a stick on the floor and listen to the echoes bounce off the walls. He'd go home and let that cook in his head, and then he'd build a 6,000 pipe organ to resonate perfectly within the geometry of the cathedral. So wow. Which way are we going? Are we on the way down?
Yeah.
But this gets into what's called polyphonics, polyphonic music. It was a way of resonation using organ music to separate the spirit from the body.
That was they were doing some interesting stuff with those pipe organs that maybe a little bit more than is surface level with those things.
Well, what I do know is the organ was the first analog computer.
Okay.
Meaning the frequencies have, stimulate whatever entities actually control around the ether, basically. There's a communication that's happening between the organ and the entities that are involved in this reality with us somehow. The energy, or I'm not exactly sure what you would call it. I'm kind of reaching for words here.
Yeah.
It's a very, very deep understanding that I'm just beginning to kind of understand little bits about. But what I do know, what I do know is that the music spectrum, as we know it, is not the original music spectrum. It's not the original notes received by David from in the Bible.
Okay.
The music was shifted in phase because the original music was harmonic. Now, if we were all locked into in harmony, meaning if you understand music theory and you know what being in harmony with your surroundings means, it means the waveforms taper together perfectly. There is not one abruption, not one single one. Okay. Everything harmonious. Now, when you have certain experiences, you experience like a harmonious bliss type state. You can kind of get what I'm saying.
Yep.
But if you even want to read stuff on harmonics, you have to read either German or Latin.
Oh, really?
They don't translate these books into English, okay? Because it deals with dimensions and all this other stuff that we're completely ignorant to.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's the sound thing is fascinating, and the way that all these cathedrals are built, and like like I was saying earlier, all the stained glass windows and how they are representing like cymatic patterns and things like that is just there was some definite things going on with all this stuff going. In the past, they were more in tune to this type of thing.
Well, it's unbelievable because the only, we grow up in these bodies, and it was just the other day that I realized this. We have the most magnificent, harmonious, incredible biology in the fucking galaxy, and we don't know how to use it. We don't know anything about how to use it properly. Nothing. We are literally waking up in the middle of history. We don't even know how to use our biology properly.
Yeah, I think if we make it into the positive future, and to me it's already here, and it's something that
it is already here. It's being split. There's a split happening.
Yeah, that's quite possible that is the case.
It's like akin to like a frequency split.
Okay.
You're literally, it goes back to you're sending out frequencies to the universe of what you want in your experience.
Yeah.
So if those are the types of thoughts going off of your head, what are you going to get?
Yeah, more of that, or yeah.
Exactly. So we're constantly thinking in our minds about this and that and this and that, and meanwhile, we kind of forget that we're sending these vibrational messages to the universe. But we are tricked through our unconscious minds through the subliminal programming and all the TV and movies that we saw throughout our whole life. We are literally creating our experience through our subconscious mind while we're fucking sleeping, because apparently the actual octave that we use, the vibrations actually cause the hemispheres of the brain not to communicate or to separate. Left and right brain. This is another reason why if you were a left-handed kid, they'd tell you that you were evil and you should write with your right hand, because when you learn to write with your right hand, you're not using the creative side of your brain for the applied stuff in life. If you use your left hand, then it's the other side of the brain. Then you're a lot more creative.
Yeah.
But they don't want creative people, or at least at that point they didn't.
Well, no, what I've looked into as far as the building
we're gonna need a lot. We're gonna need a lot of creative people to pull us out of the, all of this.
Absolutely, and that's one of the big things in my show is just trying to show people, there's a lot of technologies that are out there right now that are at our disposal that can really help you create abundance and things like that, and sharing information about health and energy technologies and different things that are at our disposal right now that can really help us create so much abundance and just leave this system behind. So in that regard, I am very hopeful for the future, because what I see, there are a lot of technologies that are here right now that can be used to help us create that abundance. And you don't have to have massive industries anymore. We have a lot of tools at our disposal now, like 3D printers and plastic recycling, and this guy even created an invention that can help turn waste plastics into diesel fuel and things like that. And there's a lot of this stuff out there that, and a lot of this stuff is the revolution will not be televised. You got all these things happening all over the world right now. You got Hong Kong, you got stuff happening in France, you got I heard there was even something happening in Peru or something, or
there's always something happening in Peru.
Yeah, there's something happening.
That's a hotbed for these energies.
Yeah, so there's all this stuff happening all over the world right now, and I think people are starting to wake up to understand that something is deeply wrong with the way this whole thing is, and moving away from it. A lot of people are making the conscious choice to take the actions to get out of it, and in my opinion, the people that are going out there and trying to become more self-sufficient and stuff are, we're all trying to get to the same place together. And, the homesteaders and the people out there that are trying to live more within their own means and not get into debt and all that kind of stuff, they're all part of the solution. And, that's kind of the choice, is that, do we want to live in that personal responsibility and freedom, or do you want to go the other way and have abdicate that over to somebody else and for your safety or something and live in tyranny. So,
Wow.
so I think those are our choices, and it can either be like a world of complete abundance and amazing stuff, or that world of tyranny. So,
I have I got 2 books here that I just remembered that I really want to get out to whoever's listening.
Okay.
Just real quick.
Yeah.
One of them is called Cybernetics by Maxwell Powell.
Okay. Cybernetics. Maxwell Powell. All right. I see a guy, Maxwell Maltz.
Oh, that's him, yep.
Okay. Maxwell Maltz. Cybernetics.
Yep.
Okay.
It's it's actually like a self-help book from the 70s.
Okay.
But I've read the book 4 times, and I'm still getting unbelievable information out of it. It's all about self-image. I mean, it should have been the first book you read out of high school, or better yet, right when you hit puberty. I'm serious.
Okay.
It's the missing information that we needed in high school. Remember when you went to your parents and you asked them what it was all about, and they didn't have an effing clue?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the book that they could have handed you? This is it.
Yeah.
So anyway, the other book is actually the understanding of the well, it's basically the physics of conscious reality. Okay, the actual physics of consciousness.
Okay.
And this is by a guy named Isaac, which is spelled Izacc.
All right.
Bentov, Bentov.
Okay.
And the book is called Stalking the Wild Pendulum.
Okay. Wild Pendulum. Okay, got it here. Stalking the Wild Pendulum on the Mechanics of Consciousness. Nice.
Those 2 books, those last 2 books, if you only have money for 2 books,
okay,
get those 2 out of the ones that I mentioned, because those 2 are absolutely fundamental. They're absolutely fundamental in this process, in my opinion. It doesn't really matter which angle you're waking up from with those 2 books. Everybody deals with the stuff in those books.
Okay, cool. Yeah, well, man, I got some reading to do. Yeah, man. Yeah. Again,
I have, but believe me when I say that's a very small amount. We're going to be doing a lot more videos. I can't believe that was 3 hours. I barely even touched a little bit of the stuff.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, man, I really appreciate your time coming on and chatting with me today. And absolutely, you're welcome anytime. And very fascinating conversation. And look forward to tagging back up with you and doing another one of these.
Yeah, definitely. And anybody out there that wants one little last name thing, if you want to check out a cool quick video, this guy's name is Dan Winter. And it's some really, again, this is something that I'm not going to just say it's absolute truth. What I am going to say that I think it's worth your time to look at it, and I value your opinion about it. I'd like to know what other people think about this stuff.
Yeah.
And so, people love to give their opinions, so it shouldn't be too fucking hard to get people to look at this shit.
Yeah.
You can't get people to stop giving their opinions about things.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, so Yeah, that's great stuff, man. I really appreciate it. Yeah, thanks again for coming on with me and sharing what you have. And I'm glad that you did and decided to come on and share this information.
One very last thing I'm going to mention, just because we forgot to mention it when we were talking about Paul Stamets.
Okay.
His work with making medicine out of specific mushrooms to help heal the bees, the honeybees, from the parasites that are basically feeding on them and pumping them full of viruses. And that's partly why they're dying off.
Oh.
Paul Stamets figured out that 7 different mushrooms out of the old growth forest actually double their lifespans. Double their lifespans, meaning they're living for 9 days instead of 4. Because right now honeybees are only living half their lifespans, and they're getting like horrible things like Alzheimer's disease. They can't even find their way back to the hive. They're really they need the proper medicine that they had 600 years ago before our ancestors came here and cut down all the fucking trees. They separated the mycelial networks that used to stretch from this side of the continent to the other. And the bees are the knowledge keepers. They have a vibrational, like molecular frequency, bank within them. They understand harmonically which frequencies or molecules are going to make what type of medicine with what type of flower essence. They're unbelievably intelligent. They are the most intelligent of all intelligence. Again, they just don't speak English.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a previous guest that he traps wild bee swarms. His name's Professor Bromide. I think you would get along with him very well too. But he has been doing that for a long time, and he could really go down the rabbit hole about the bees as well. He's that past podcast, Professor Bromide, he talks about how the bees will do a dance, a specific dance to tell the rest of the bees that they found the right place for a hive and all this stuff. And yeah, they're fascinating creatures.
Well, when you actually watch them, yeah, it's like they're saying, go half past the second tree, turn left at the creek, and if you see the big boulder that's about ready to fall over there, you went too far. That's what they're saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm sure eventually, with all this artificial intelligence and stuff like that, we're going to be able to make interface systems to communicate with all sorts of life forms. They're already doing it with dolphins. As a matter of fact, there are children being born right now with enough of the genetics from the shamanistic times that are coming back. They're able to communicate with dolphins.
Man, that would be really neat to be able to talk with different animals and stuff.
Well, actually, apparently they're developing the technology so that we can talk to the dolphins because apparently they were once land creatures and they wound up in the water because of some reason. And basically because the new civilization after all of this is going to be based on frolic. And the only beings that are mammals that know about that are dolphins.
Oh, interesting.
So the new culture, from what I hear, is basically going to be, it's going to be based on play or frolicking.
Okay.
Instead of work, because there's going to be a lot of machines doing a lot of the work for us.
That would be really cool. Yeah. So, yeah.
But I've been beekeeping for 2 years. I highly recommend anybody that wants to get into it that gets into it. But don't take the easy road and just douse your bees with a bunch of fucking lithium. Okay, You're not going to help the situation by buying some bees and just throwing a bunch of fucking poison in their hive, because you're putting that shit right into the food web of anybody that's within a couple miles of the place.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that gets in their honey and everything, I bet too. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of stuff they're finding in wax. There are. I'm not even going to name names, but there are certain places that won't even test the wax that comes from America anymore. I'll just leave it at that.
Oh, that's very interesting. So they're seeing different particles showing up in the wax.
I can only imagine what they're finding in the wax.
Interesting.
But yeah. I'm not about to highlight that out of everything else that's going on, because it's not going to cause anything positive to happen.
Yeah, I hear you. Yep.
You know, we can't obsess over things like that. We need to find creative solutions.
Yep. Absolutely, brother.
So
I 100% agree.
Peace, love, understanding, free will, creativity, and just love, man. You know, you are all you
Yep.
are all part of this huge experience. And if you're not living it up to your fullest potential, you're squandering it. You're wasting your life. If there was
Amen.
ever a time to snap out of it and wake up, it is right now. It is right now.
Amen. Amen, brother. Yeah. Yeah. It's good good information to get out and really good positive message to leave people on. So again, thank you so much for your time and sitting down to talk with me.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You bet, brother. So we'll end it on that note, and I'll catch you for another session sometime.
Absolutely. Very soon.
All right, brother. Well, you have a good evening, and again, thank you so much for coming on.
You too, man. Thank you.
All right. Well, have a good one.
You too. Bye.
All right. Bye.